Price moves fast, but it cannot stay there. The session forms inside the same overlapping range. The session forms between prior US boundaries. Price moves upward. It reaches the upper edge. It touches the boundary. It reacts immediately. It returns again. The move looks clean, but it does not hold. Distance disappears quickly. Price moves higher again. It reaches the same level. It fails again. Each attempt looks strong, but each one ends faster. Continuation fails earlier. Price reaches the boundary. Reaction comes faster. Return follows sooner. The session stays in place. Movement increases. Location does not change. Price pushes upward. It slows earlier. It returns again. Pullbacks deepen. Recoveries shorten. Distance becomes smaller. The same path repeats. Reach. Fail. Return. Price moves again. It reaches less distance. It reacts sooner. Each move becomes shorter. Each reaction becomes faster. Each continuation ends earlier. The boundary holds again. Price cannot stay outside. It returns again. If price cannot hold here, it returns again. If it returns faster, distance stays small. If distance stays small, structure does not move. Price pushes upward again. It stalls earlier. It drops back inside. The session forms at the same level. It does not expand outward. It rotates inside. Price reaches the boundary again. It reacts immediately. It returns again. No extension builds. No persistence forms. The range remains intact. Pullbacks grow deeper. Recoveries lose strength. Continuation fades earlier. Price moves higher. It cannot stay. It returns again. The repetition continues. The structure absorbs movement. The outcome does not change. Moves appear strong, but they collapse faster. Distance disappears again. The session remains inside. The attempts continue. Nothing relocates. If this keeps failing here, distance stays small. If distance stays small, structure holds. If structure holds, movement repeats. Flat movement appears. Then a push comes. Then it fails again. Flat again. Then another push. Then another failure. The space tightens. The reaction speeds up. The move shortens. Price reaches again. It cannot stay. It returns again. The boundary remains active. Every move tests it. Every move fails there. The structure does not change. The movement keeps coming. The result keeps repeating. Compression builds slowly. Movement becomes tighter. Distance becomes smaller. Nothing escapes. Everything returns. The session remains inside. Price pushes higher again, but it fails at the same place. The session forms inside the same boundary. The session forms near the lower edge of the prior box. Price moves upward. It reaches the top again. It breaks briefly. But it cannot stay there. It falls back inside. The breakout looks strong, but it fades quickly. Continuation fails again. Price moves higher once more. It reaches less distance. It reacts sooner. Each attempt becomes weaker. Each reaction becomes faster. Each return becomes deeper. Price reaches the boundary. It reacts immediately. It returns again. The same failure repeats. The same return follows. The same distance collapses. The session does not relocate. It stays anchored. It repeats inside. If price cannot hold above this level, it returns. If it returns faster, continuation cannot extend. If continuation cannot extend, structure holds again. Price revisits the same level. It reacts immediately. It drops back again. Pullbacks deepen faster. Recoveries shorten earlier. Continuation fades sooner. The range continues to hold. Price cannot escape. It rotates again. Now movement becomes uneven. Upward pushes look sharp, but they stall quickly. Downward moves follow, but they also fail. They return inside again. Both directions fail to extend. Both sides lose distance. Both return to the same place. The overlap increases. The reactions compress. The movement tightens. Flat movement appears again. Then a push forms. Then it fails again. Flat again. Then another push. Then another failure. The repetition becomes faster. The reaction becomes sharper. The distance becomes smaller. Price moves upward again. It stalls earlier. It reverses again. The boundary remains active. Every attempt fails there. Every move returns. If reactions come faster, continuation cannot extend. If continuation cannot extend, range dominates. If range dominates, structure stays unchanged. The session forms again at the same level. It does not expand. It does not relocate. Each move becomes smaller. Each reaction becomes sharper. Each return becomes quicker. Price reaches again. It fails again. It returns again. The repetition continues. The structure holds. The movement compresses. Nothing extends. Nothing persists. Everything returns. Price drops lower, but it does not escape. The session forms back inside the same range. The session opens below. It moves into the prior box. It overlaps again. The drop looks strong, but it slows quickly. It stops inside. Price moves to the lower edge. It reacts there. It returns upward. Then it reaches the upper edge. It fails again. It drops again. Rotation resumes. Distance stays limited. Reactions come faster. Both sides fail. Neither side holds. Both return inside. If price cannot leave this range, it rotates. If rotation continues, compression builds. If compression builds, movement tightens further. Each move reaches a boundary faster. Each reaction appears sooner. Each continuation ends earlier. Price moves up. It cannot stay. It returns again. Price moves down. It cannot extend. It returns again. The same failure repeats. The same return follows. The same range holds. Pullbacks deepen inside. Recoveries lose strength. Continuation disappears quickly. The session forms again at the same level. It does not relocate. It continues inside. Flat movement appears. Then a push forms. Then it fails again. Flat again. Then another push. Then another failure. The repetition accelerates. The reaction speeds up. The distance shrinks further. If this keeps repeating, distance collapses. If distance collapses, reactions dominate. If reactions dominate, structure holds again. The boundaries define everything. Price cannot move beyond them. It keeps returning. The movement remains active, but the location does not change. The structure stays fixed. Distance becomes smaller. Reaction becomes faster. Continuation becomes weaker. Nothing escapes. Nothing extends. Everything returns. Environment is still processing.